Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our presentation this morning from Software 2. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm looking forward to sharing with you this morning one of our customer case studies, and we'll also be providing a demonstration of our technology towards the end of the session. But just by way of introduction, my name is Phil Morgan, and I'm Director of Client Services here at Software 2. I actually joined Software 2 last year, and since then I've worked with close to 100 universities and colleges on software delivery using our AppsAnywhere solution. And software delivery in a university environment is a challenge that I know very well, because before I joined Software 2, I actually worked at Lancaster University for over 10 years. And Lancaster University is a modern university in the north of England, here in the UK. We're quite near to the Lake District. The campus is surrounded by some beautiful countryside. So it's a nice place to work. As I say, I was there for over 10 years. And there were 4 faculties at Lancaster. I was responsible for IT service delivery for 2 of those faculties, the business and the medical schools. But I also had a second role as service manager for desktop and software deployment across the university. So as an alumni and a former staff member of the university, I'm obliged to give them a little bit of promotion. So I'll just say that Lancaster University is one of the top 10 universities in the UK and top 150 in the world. And with around 17,500 staff and students working on the university campus. So they use all of the software that you would expect to see at a university, both for teaching and in research. So Lancaster is a fairly typical UK university. Back in 2012, when our project began, Lancaster University had around 8,500 university-owned computers and laptops, and that included about 1,500 computers in labs, and we were deploying about 250 software titles. So the spend on software annually was around £750,000, so quite a significant service that we were trying to provide to staff and students. And we also knew from our network registrations that our students brought 15,000 personal computers and laptops to campus each year. Now, around this time, we were reviewing the IT services that we provided to students, and we did a survey to get some feedback, and I also hosted a number of student forums where we'd invite the students in to share their thoughts about IT services at the university. And one of the things that came out very strongly in that feedback was that software was a particular issue. And the issue was that software was only available in specific computer labs. And because those labs were in use for teaching and they were busy, the students couldn't get in to use the software. The students had personal laptops, so they wanted to be able to use the personal laptops, but it was difficult to get hold of the software. We did make software available on CDs, we made software available for students to download, but they had problems. They ran into lots of download and installation problems and errors, and generally this was giving them a bad student experience. So there's very strong feedback from the students that software was a problem. And we then looked at our own statistics in the IT department, and it wasn't a good experience for us either. So we had 1,300 support tickets just about software in 6 months. It made it the 5th highest problem to the IT help desk. It was about 9% of all the support tickets, and 50% of those tickets were just staff and students having problems getting the software installed or just getting it downloaded. So some of the tickets were obviously about how to use the software, but half of them were staff and students not even being able to get started. And when we looked at our resolution rates, it was taking about 1 week to resolve these tickets, these software installation problems. So the students were having to wait. Now, you may have heard that the British like to queue, but it's always raining here. No one likes to stand out in the rain. So, generally downloading and getting access to software was a bad experience for students. They were queuing up at the help desk for CDs and to get help with the installation, so not great. And on the IT services delivery side, we actually had 6 staff working on legacy app deployment, so using legacy technologies to deploy software to our computer labs. And on average, it was taking between 1 and 5 days to prepare an application for delivery or to package an app. And so to install the software to our 8,500 computers, we had around 250 apps. We were spending something around 750 days of time each year just to get software installed into computer labs. And that doesn't include the time that we spent fixing problems afterwards. So it was a lot of work, and it wasn't delivering a good student experience. And so when we started this project, we thought, well, there must be a better way. And virtualization seemed to be the answer. That was the thing that everybody was talking about. And so we went to all the big virtualization players, and we did trials with VMware, with ThinApp, and with Citrix, and we tried Microsoft AppV. But we pretty soon realized that some of the apps didn't work. We just couldn't virtualize them with legacy technologies like AppV. And also, the performance of the apps was very slow. So where we were using VDI type technologies, unless we invested heavily in the back-end infrastructure, the performance of the applications at the end user client was very poor, and they'd have problems if they lost the network or the Wi-Fi connection on a laptop. Obviously, the application didn't work anymore. So the performance didn't seem to be very good. We couldn't virtualize all the applications, and it was very expensive. So the kind of pricing that we were looking at for the project just to get started in year 1 was £650,000 for 1,500 lab PCs to convert those to thin clients. So not great. That didn't even include making the service available to student laptops. That would only have been for the PC labs. So it didn't seem to be solving the problem. But around that time, we came across Software 2. And Software 2 was different for a couple of key reasons. Firstly, it was a far less expensive solution, but also Software 2 could deploy 100% of our apps. And the key to that is in the cloud paging app virtualization technology that they use. Now, cloud paging is actually 2 technologies combined. The first is a streaming technology. So much like you would stream music, you don't need to download the entire song to start listening. And it's the same with cloud paging an application. So you might only need to download 6% of an app like Photoshop in order to start using it. And then as you use the app, the rest of the files and registry keys are downloaded on demand. So the result is comparable to an app running locally, but it runs at full speed, so you get the full native performance, but you don't need to install it, so you can use the app right away. And because the apps are running locally, there's no need to buy expensive servers for VDI. We could take advantage of the laptops that students already have. Okay, so this was really, really helpful for us. The other difference with cloud paging is in the virtualization. So cloud paging has configurable virtualization. Applications can be fully virtualized and isolated from the rest of the system, or they can be integrated. So we can actually install individual files like drivers and services if we need to, and that means that we can virtualize 100% of apps. So we've got these 2 elements to the cloud paging technology, the fast streaming, the apps running natively on the end user device, but also being able to virtualize 100% of the apps. And then what Software 2 added was the S2 Hub, or is the Software 2's University App Store. And what that allowed us to do is provide all of the software through a university app store. We could target users or machines, so we could say this application is available on these computers or to these students, just as you'd expect from any software deployment technology. But the key difference with the S2 Hub is that we add flexible license controls, and they can be based on things like device ownership. So we could say this application is only available on university computers, but this other application can be used on any device. We can specify whether applications can be used just on the university campus or whether they can also be used off-site. We can also add geofencing. So if the license is only within our country, we can set that. And we can also manage any license as a concurrent license. So if we only have 100 licenses for an application, we can set that limit of 100 licenses and we can manage that through S2 Hub. So what this all does is enable bring your own device. It allowed us to make software available to students' own laptops, but still adhere to all the terms of the educational software licenses. So it's great. And the other thing that we got was a detailed usage report. So we could see exactly which applications were the most popular, how long they were being used for, cumulative across all of the staff and students. So we could start to make some good decisions about software licensing and which applications to buy for our students. So two technologies brought together, the cloud paging app virtualization and the S2 Hub, Software 2's University App Store. And Software 2 have recently sort of brought these technologies together under one solution name, and that name is AppsAnywhere. So what we did at Lancaster University is we saw this technology and we thought, well, this is great because we can now provide one university app store and we can deliver any app to any device anywhere. We can do it for all students and staff. We can include student laptops and they can use the applications both on and off campus. So we did what most universities I think would do and tend to do with this kind of project is we started with what we knew well. So we started with the campus PC labs, but we also did some trials making the software and the app store available to students to use on their own laptops. So beginning with the computer labs, in the first year we virtualized most of the software. And we thought we need to let the students know what's changed in the computer lab because we'd taken the shortcuts away from the start menu and we'd moved them onto the App Store. So what we did, the students logged in to a computer lab PC and we opened a splash screen to let them know what was happening and about this new service that we had available. Now you can imagine what happened. The students closed the window and then they went to the start menu and they wondered where have all the applications gone. So we realized we had to be a bit smarter. We added in a desktop wallpaper to let the students know where they could get the applications. We added in a shortcut. We decided to call our service application jukebox, so we talked about jukebox applications. And what we realized pretty quickly is that students understand app stores. Students nowadays have grown up with app stores, and so all we really needed to do was just open the app store on screen when the students log in, and they would just carry on launching the application straight away. So it's very easy to use. Now, this is what the original version of S2 Hub looked like out of the box. Other universities customized this. So Coventry University have done a nice theme. They've added the user guide at the top of the app list. But probably the best one I've seen so far is this one from Glasgow Caledonian University. They're using an App Store look, and they've added a banner in to provide more information. And the great thing about this is that every time a student logs into the computer lab, this opens so that they can access the applications, but they also use this as a way to advertise that the students can use the service at home on their own laptops and their own computers. So it's a really good way to get the message across. The students log into computer labs, up pops the App Store, they can get on with launching the apps. And the other really useful thing about this is the virtualization works across Windows operating systems. So it's not just at Windows 7. When we moved to Windows 10, the only thing that really changed is the taskbar. The way that staff and students access applications is exactly the same. They can go to the S2 hub, to the University App Store, and launch the apps. So this allowed us to deliver a much better experience for our staff and students. So when we look at the results of the project at Lancaster University, we were able to make around 150 apps available for students to use on their own laptops. We had some good license terms for some of the apps. There was a lot of open source applications, a lot of value in those, making those really easy for the students to get access to straight from our App Store. But we were, as well as being able to deliver all of the apps from one app store around the campus and to students who were studying in Lancaster, we could also deliver apps to distance learners, which is really important. So the distance learners in the past wouldn't have had access to this kind of software, so a big benefit to them. And it really changed our whole approach to PC labs at the university. We didn't need to have as many dedicated PC labs anymore. So this photograph is of Lancaster University Library, which was refurbished just over a year ago. And this used to be rows and rows of computers, but now they've got flexible spaces where students can bring their own laptops, plug them into power and data. There's still some PCs on the upper level there that you can probably just see. But we could provide much more flexible learning spaces for the students. They can work in groups using their own laptop and still have access to the software. And one of the big things that we noticed at the end of the project is a big reduction in the number of software support tickets. So because the students could access the software so easily through our university app store, there weren't the same number of questions. They didn't have to ask for license keys. We didn't have to send out new license keys annually. All of that is handled in the system, so the software just works. So far less queries about software. But there's also a lot of benefits for the IT department. We were focused on the student experience, but we also wanted to make our lives easier in IT. So just being able to access all software in all computer labs made a big difference. We no longer had to worry about which lab they were going to teach the engineering class in or the management class in. The software could be used anywhere across the campus. And if we needed to add a new application, we didn't need to reboot the computer lab PCs. We could just add the new apps to the software hub at any time. It also meant, because of the cloud paging virtualization technology, we could speed up the installations. The apps launch in just a few seconds, and we don't need to use all of that disk space that we needed when we were installing hundreds of applications natively. It also allowed us to update and patch applications at any time. So in the past, we would worry about updating an application during term time in case we caused a problem in the lab. But with the virtualization technology and because of the isolation features, we didn't have to worry about conflicts. So if we needed to update or patch an application or deploy a new application, we could do that no problem. And one of the other great benefits with the virtualization is that you can run multiple versions of the same app on the same computer. So we used to have this thing that a lot of universities will see. Every summer there was an argument about which versions of applications we would make available in labs. Would it be the latest, the new version of SPSS that some of the academics wanted to use, or would it be the old version that matched all of the lecture slides and the academics didn't want to have to update the slides? But it didn't matter anymore. We could make both versions of applications available, old and new, and the academics could choose when they moved to the new version. And as I said before, when we moved to Windows 10, it was no problem. Nearly all of the applications continued to work on Windows 10 so we didn't have to go through a big exercise of redeployment. It just works really nice. So moving on from Lancaster University, Lancaster University is one member of the Software 2 community. It's obviously a university where I worked for a long time and know very well. But the Software 2 community is made up of over 100 universities worldwide. And the real strength of what we do with Software 2 is in that community. So there's over 100 customers. All of those customers are universities and colleges. And so they work together, and within the community, we share the app virtualization recipes. So the instructions on how to prepare the applications are there for everybody on the forums and shared between the universities and colleges. And Software 2 provide free open source applications ready to download and use in the S2 hub. So the universities don't have to package the open source applications, they are provided. But what's really great about the Software 2 and the community is that all of the features that go into S2 Hub and into AppsAnywhere are all based on customer feedback. So everything that's built in has come from an idea from a university or college, and it's all designed to give an awesome student experience. So the Software 2 solution, we call this AppsAnywhere, and I'm going to hand over to my colleague Leon Walsh, who's online, and he's going to give you a demonstration of how this new AppsAnywhere solution actually works.
Thanks, Phil. So just before we start, has anybody got any questions? Anything that I'm just requesting control from my computer. There we go. Okay. So, you see my screen? Right, so what I'm going to do is give you the demo of the App Store as if I was logging in for the first time as a student on an unmanaged device. So this is our demo portal. If anybody wants to try this, you can go over to our website and go to try.software2.com. That will take you to a registration page where you can just fill in a couple of details and then get access to this demo portal straight away. So it's worth noting that this screen is completely customizable. You can add your own university logo, your own backdrop. And when I've logged in to the S2 Hub, it's giving me it's effectively authenticating against our domain, our Active Directory, and it's giving me some criteria, some applications based on the criteria that my laptop is in. So we can see here that I'm on a machine, I'm not attached to domain, I'm on a user-owned device, I'm off-site, and I'm on Windows 10. And that criteria has given me a number of applications that I can use based on that criteria. You can see I've got a fairly standard image. I've got very, very little on my machine. But if we go to something like AutoCAD or probably Foxit's a good idea, a good place to start, because Foxit has its own PDF driver. So if we click launch on Foxit, we're delivering this via cloud paging, which is the virtualization technology that we use to deliver the vast majority of our applications. But there are other technologies that are built into AppsAnywhere such as Microsoft SCCM, Microsoft AppV. We do Mac OS fat deployment, iOS deployment, Android deployment. But if we stick with cloud paging for now, and we select this particular application, and we launch Foxit, first of all, it's going to request a license from the AppsAnywhere servers, and then it's going to start virtualizing the application on my machine. And within a few seconds, you can see that we've got Foxit, PDF reader, and more importantly, the PDF print driver. So if we go to print there, you'll see that the Foxit PDF print driver is there. And if we go to a local app, an app that we know that's installed on the machine, so something like Notepad, and we go to print, you'll see that the Foxit PDF driver is available for local apps to use as well. Now if we stop and remove Foxit, we'll just remove AutoCAD there as well. And we go back to Notepad. You'll see that not only has the application been removed, but the PDF driver has as well. Now, as Phil alluded to, we can virtualize just about any application. Where we excel is the really horrible science and engineering applications, such as AutoCAD, ArcGIS, all of the stuff that's pretty hard to deploy locally, let alone virtually. But if we look at AutoCAD here, and we launch AutoCAD, with traditional virtualized applications, they sit isolated to the operating system, so they can't really interact with the OS. And where cloud paging differs is we're laying down the files onto the operating system, so we are actually interacting with the local file system. So if we look at something like, there we go, first run of AutoCAD, but if we go into the background here and we look at this PC and we go to the program files, you can see that Autodesk, all the files associated with AutoCAD have been laid down, all the DLLs. We'll just give AutoCAD a few seconds to finish launching. Now if I came along now with a local plugin, a plugin on a USB stick or on a CD, and I wanted to interact with AutoCAD, it would install the local plugin into the file system of the virtualized application, and I could interact with that plugin just as I would do a standard locally installed application. Now the clever bit, I'm not going to show you AutoCAD because I don't know how to use it, but if we minimize that, or we get rid of it, now you can see that all the files for AutoCAD are there. But if we stop and remove the application, all of those files disappear. So there's no evidence of AutoCAD ever being run on my machine. And we can do that for any application. Now you can see here in the AppsAnywhere client that there's a lot of applications that are launching via cloud paging. But typically, if an application like iTunes or an application like Skype, it's pointless virtualizing that application. All you want to do is provide a reliable download link so the user can install that application on their device. Now, typically when a student comes along and they want something like Acrobat Reader, the first thing they'll do is Google Acrobat Reader, and typically the first 15 or so results will get Acrobat Reader, but not from Adobe. Some other dubious website with some malware or spyware or some god-awful apps.com toolbar or whatever it is, and you just want to provide the student with a reliable download link for that particular application, and that's what the AppsAnywhere store allows you to do. Applications with dependencies. So if we've got, say, Ubuntu server here, and that's launching via cloud paging, but we know Ubuntu server requires, that's a VM, so it requires an application to run that VM. So if we click launch, joys of a demo. Come on. Okay, we're going to have to fix Ubuntu server. But basically, Ubuntu server has a dependency, and the dependency is VirtualBox. So typically when we click launch on Ubuntu server, it says you need VirtualBox to run this application. Would you like to download VirtualBox, or would you like to cloud page it? There's a number of different options available to everybody within the S2 Hub. And as Phil alluded to before, we've got some geolocation services within the AppsAnywhere client that will tell you whether you're off-site, whether you're on-site, whether you're off-domain, whether you're on-domain, and the delivery methods for that particular application and the regions associated for that application. So as you can see, Foxit here is not restricted to a region. We've given the operating systems that Foxit supports. If we go to VLC, that's probably a standard app for every OS. So if we go to more info here, you can see the delivery methods and the operating systems it supports. And it just doesn't just stop at applications either. We can launch to a website or a web service. So Office 365, Outlook Online. Every single delivery method that you could possibly think of, we've built into AppsAnywhere. So it could be that you've got an application that would require a remote app. The user's off-site, you've got a license that only supports on-site use of that application, then we'd launch that application via remote app or via a VDI session. If it's a Mac, then it's going to provide you with a different view of your applications because Mac users typically want Mac applications. So we'd fat install the Mac applications to that particular device. If you're on an iOS device, then again, you're going to have a different set of applications based on what you've logged in with. So it's a very flexible way of providing applications to students and a very easy way of you controlling the license restrictions from your applications. There's customizable views, so we can present the applications in a different way. And as Phil alluded to before, we've got the reporter feature built into AppsAnywhere. Now I'm an admin, so I've got access to this information a student wouldn't, but we've got the most popular applications, the least popular applications, the daily usage summary for each application, who they're being used by, where they're being used. All of those reports have been built in to the S2 hub, and that's some really great management information for the IT staff. So I can sit here all day launching applications, but it's a fairly boring process. I guess the key point here is that we can support all of your applications. There hasn't been an application we've ever been able to virtualize. Even some of the tricky ones like JAWS, which require a screen reader and some dependencies on the hardware. As I said, all of the horrible science engineering apps. Applications that have lots of dependencies, such as NVivo is quite a heavyweight application, requires a .NET instance, an SQL server, and some other services. That's all built in, so when the user clicks launch, the application's hold, and all of those dependencies are streamed down with the application. And if it's like SQL Express, then you may want to isolate that version of SQL Express. So other versions of NVivo can be used on the same machine at the same time. Okay, so that's pretty much where we go on a sort of a first pass. If anybody has any more technical questions, I'm quite happy to answer. As I said, we'd love to meet you guys. So if you want to go into this in any more detail, then I'm quite happy to come over and see you at your university. I'm often in Sweden, so.